back to the Let's Grow podcast. It's your girl Lex Luxe, and I'm here with the season finale of season 1. Isn't that crazy? Like, that's wild to think that we're done with a whole season of this podcast. A podcast I didn't even want to start, if we're being honest. Or I'm not gonna say I didn't want to, I'm gonna say I was nervous to start. I waited to do this for a long time. That's not today's message. That's neither here nor there. Today is going to be a part 2 to our previous episode about faith as a foundation. So this particular episode, I want to talk specifically about this current season of faith that I'm in, specifically with my first baby, my first business, Lex Luxe Essentials. So for people that do not know, I got the nickname Lex Luxe because of my boutique. It's called Lex Luxe Essentials. It is a boutique that provides essential clothing for women who want to enjoy comfort, convenience, and confidence, but they don't want to sacrifice any of those things. Like, they want to be cute, but they don't want to take all day getting ready, right? And a lot of the essentials that I sell are like 2-piece sets, basic staple pieces that you can just keep in your closet. They are like your go-tos when you have a busy day or a day that you really want to feel good, a day that you have something exciting to do. It is just essentials for every girl, honestly. I started this business in 2020, right? I've talked about this in previous episodes, so you know a little bit, but we'll kind of deep dive today because I want to talk about why I quit it on last year. Lex Luxe Essentials, my baby, she was born in 2020. It honestly came out of a season of like, I was fresh in my surrender to God. I was just newly committed, I guess you could say. Like, you grow up in church but you don't really know God for yourself. I was in that season of like getting to know him for myself, and it was this time in 2019, because we're in July when I'm recording this. So it was July 2019 where God gave me the vision. I was in a very small boutique. It wasn't new because she'd been around for a while, but it was just like, it was small, quick, and I just loved the stuff that was in there, honestly. And I was like, oh, this is nice, okay. And I felt the Holy Spirit say to me, you could do this. And I was like, me? I mean, maybe I could do this, but should I? Like, for me, I can remember vividly saying to my dad, because I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. Everybody have their own situation going on. So I remember telling my dad at one point in my life, I was like, I'm not passionate enough about anything to start a business. And I really believe that. But when that seed was planted in July, I kind of sat with it for a few months. And there were certain things that happened in between July and December that kind of like signaled to me, like, I actually think that God is moving me to do this, right? I began to have these ideas about how having a boutique for women would give me the access that I need to the women that I want to serve as a therapist. Because keep in mind, I was in school for social work. I'm now a social worker, but at the time I was in school, and I knew that I wanted to be a therapist. I knew that I wanted to serve women, and I knew that I wanted to host conferences, which is crazy because I said that with no example to point to, and now I have the Cultivate conference, which is really, really cool because I didn't think that that would be correlated in any way, but it is, right? So, okay, July to December, I sat with the idea, and I was like, we could do that. I could, but still, like, do I want to? People started to, like, say things to me, and I felt like they were saying it, but God was using them to say it, if that makes sense. So I would have people say, like, oh my goodness, you always have, like, the cutest sets. If I would go somewhere, people would, like, compliment me on a previous outfit, not even just the outfit I was in, but like maybe a previous outfit or something. My friends that wouldn't normally ask me what to wear started to ask me what to wear, and I was like, okay, we're getting somewhere. And like I said, I would have the idea and the vision of like how I could use the boutique to be a platform for what I felt like God really wanted me to do, which was help heal women through conferences and retreats. And the idea was like women's conferences, marriage retreats, like different things for children. I've always wanted to serve the family unit. That is a big passion point for me. So I always knew that I wanted to do these things. I just never knew how. But I felt like God was telling me to start with the boutique. So I was like, okay, it's a little different. It's not a traditional route, but I'm gonna do it. So I made a decision to do it in December, and I sat in my bed on YouTube University for a month, like over an entire Christmas break, just researching how do people start boutiques? Where do they get their vendors? Where do they find this? How do they do this? Oh, I want to do this packaging. I created a mock website. I was just kind of learning my way through it because I wanted to do it right. I knew I wanted to do it with integrity, and I knew I wanted to do it God's way. Because again, I was in that season of like fresh surrender. And so I'm like, Lord, I'm not moving until you tell me to move. I'm not doing anything you don't want me to do. Tell me what to do. And then it came time to do it, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it. And I'm gonna launch in March of 2020. You've heard this story before. You already know where I'm going with that. And it didn't work, obviously. So I tried to launch, but I didn't launch with any type of strategy. I had inventory, I had a word from God, and that was it. I had some works behind it, but like no intentional work behind it. I just was kind of doing like the bare minimum. But again, I had no point of reference. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know that people had marketing departments for their businesses. Like I just didn't think of those things. I was like, it's social media. I'm gonna post it on Facebook. I'll go live a couple times. I'll do this and people are gonna support me. I was a little delusional in that way, but it didn't matter because at the end of the day, I didn't know what was ahead, and I didn't know what March of 2020 would have in store for us. But as we know, that's when the pandemic started, and it did not work. My boutique did not. I had the inventory. I had my roommate and my cousin as my model. I thought we were doing something. I had the most professional, pristine, excellent website. I thought I was doing things, and I had no strategy, no messaging, no marketing for the boutique at all. And it didn't work. And even then, even if I did have it, it still wouldn't have worked. Well, I'm not going to say that because I don't know what God would have done. But because of all the things in the height of that time, everybody was in fear. So I'm not certain that that was the right timing or the right way to do it. I kind of just took what God told me and ran with it. Like I gave myself a date. I didn't pray about that. I didn't pray about much of it, honestly. So I said, okay, God, I don't know why we're doing this. I don't know why this happened the way that it did. I'm going to press in, and I'm going to choose to keep faith as my foundation, right? And I went back to the drawing board. I was like, okay, what didn't work and what did work? And I just knew, like, I just had a very strong feeling of like, you have the inventory, you have the systems in place, but you don't have the messaging in place. And because I didn't have the messaging in place, people didn't know that I really existed. They didn't know where to find it. It wasn't a lot of like interest because I didn't put it out there that way. Now I know I should have, right? But at the time I didn't know. I didn't have any knowledge of things like that. And I spent that summer from like March until about June really deep diving into how are people marketing their brands. Now, granted, it was 2020, right? So, everybody and their mama had a business. Everybody had a business. Everybody wanted a PPP loan. I was a little too scary. I was fresh, new into business. I didn't want a loan because of the word loan. I was like, I'm gonna have to pay that back. They're telling me you're not gonna have to pay it back. Me being me, I didn't want it. I was being scared. If they come back around, I'm gonna tell y'all now, I'm getting one. But at that time, I didn't get one. And I don't think it would have made a difference, honestly, because I think that God was moving in me more so than the business. At that point, God was trying to tell me, like, hey, you got to consider me in everything. Hey, if we're going to do this, we have to do it together. He was showing me that this wasn't something that I should do without him because I could, right? I can have a business without God. That doesn't mean that I should, especially when he's the person that gave me the vision. So at that point, I was like, all right. The problem with the last time was, number one, I didn't consider God in all of it, basically, because I only considered him in like the idea, and then I took it and ran with it. I didn't consider God. Number two, I didn't properly do my research to know what I was getting into and what it was going to require of me. So I went back and I was like, all right, what are we doing? How should I do this? What is the vision for it? And I had to just think back to what God had been speaking to me about in terms of like If you know you want to help women feel good and look good, then confidence is going to be a big thing, right? Okay, if confidence is going to be a big thing, what is the messaging to show and demonstrate that the pieces that you sell are going to promote and produce confidence in these women? It's not just the pieces, but it's also the customer service. And I was like, okay, so things started to add up, right? Like, I began to understand that it was the full experience that these people would get from me that would show them the difference and that would set me apart from other businesses, because my intention was to do this God's way. My intention was to do this with God. Why? Because I didn't know anything. He knew everything. So the intention was, do this with me and I will show you why it makes sense to all the other things that we've talked about, right? And in that in between time, while I was doing research and I was looking into my business and trying to figure out what was the best way to do it and praying about the vision for the business, the mission for the business, right? People would come to me and they would ask me, oh, I see that you have a Shopify website. Can you help me with my Shopify website? I see that you sell jeans. I need a good jean vendor. Or how did you get your Instagram page so organized? And people started to compliment me on certain things that I intentionally put the time and effort in that first time around, like those systems and I guess the visibility of the business, like the way that it looked and appeared to people. But again, all of that is systems. And I realized, or something just, like, maybe it was the Holy Spirit, maybe the Holy Spirit just dropped it on me or spoke to me or something. I really can't tell you because it's been a while, but I just had the idea, like, oh, this business isn't about what I'm actually selling. It's about how I'm selling. This business is more of a demonstration of how to do business with God versus me just selling clothes. Because I can sell clothes. I can sell you the shirt off my back. I've actually done that, right? But it's another thing to show people how to do business with God, how to do business God's way, and how it is possible to be an entrepreneur, but also be a believer and do it not just for you and your own gain, but to do it for the kingdom and to build God's kingdom and to help God's people, essentially. And when it came to like boutiques at this time, I would say that everybody had a boutique, honestly, but they all were selling a lot of the same things. And a lot of those things were like, I wouldn't necessarily like or would be comfortable with. So I knew, like, if this is a business that represents God, then there has to be a certain level of, I don't have a word for it, but like, there has to be a difference, right? There has to be a line. We have to look different as believers. I'll say that. I think that's the best way to say it. And I started to think about that, because when it clicked and I said, this isn't about what I'm selling, it's about how I'm selling, I began to be even more intentional and prayerful about the process of my business, the experience that people had when they did business with me, as well as what I was showing to the world when it comes to social media and the website and the pop-up shops that I would do, because pop-up shops were really popular back then. And that was another thing that I kind of unlocked or figured out. I realized that those pop-up shops were not about the money that I would make, but it was about the people that I would meet. And I began to connect with people. I began to connect with other entrepreneurs. I began to connect with people in my community that just wanted to support my business because they knew me. And that was another thing that we'll talk about, how people don't actually support businesses, but they support people, right? All of these things were coming to me, and it was like I began to discover the true reasoning behind this business, because it was deeper than I thought. It wasn't about selling clothes and making money and gaining the following that would platform the conferences and retreats that I saw in the future as a therapist, right? It wasn't about that. It was about how I made these people feel and what I showed to them. I learned very early that people were watching me and people paid attention to me, and I perceived that it was important for me to lead by example in life. In business, sure, that came later, but just in life, I had this strong conviction about leading by example for a very long time. And I had to do the same in business. So when it came to Lex Luxe Essentials, I knew that I had to consider God. I knew that I had to be intentional about this relaunch, because remember, in March it didn't work. So we're back to the drawing board between March and July. In July, I'm praying and I'm like, I don't know when I'm going to restart, but I feel like I want to restart sometime in the fall. And I'm just thinking these things through. And 8/28 was a song by Lecrae that I liked at the time, but it was also a reference to Romans 8:28, which is one of my very favorite scriptures. And I looked at the date of of 8:28 in 2020, and it was on a Friday. And I was like, I'm going to relaunch on that day. One, because that's my favorite scripture. Two, the way that it happened, and I just saw it differently. I just kind of felt like something was pulling me toward that date. And then my cousin, shout out to Seisha, y'all know her, she did a pop-up shop. She did the Big General pop-up shop on 8/29. So it was perfect for me to like launch my website again on 28 and then sell the products and the essentials on the 29th at the pop-up shop. So it was kind of like a 2-day relaunch, but it was just God's timing. Honestly, I felt so much peace about that timing. I felt so much peace about what I did in that season that I was like, I feel like this is you. And so I started to reorder inventory, this time intentionally choosing my inventory for the people that I wanted to serve. So if I know that I'm not serving people in high school, or we'll just say if I know I'm not serving people in high school, I'm not going to order high school clothes. If I know that the people that I'm serving probably want more of a stretch or more of some comfort in their clothes, I'm not gonna buy a whole bunch of leather. Like, there were certain decisions that I made with my client or my target audience in mind, because I knew that if I wanted them to feel good, then the quality has to be A1. That's non-negotiable. I also knew that I didn't want to just sell anything, because my business was called Lex Luxe Essentials. I wanted to stick to essentials and have a few statement pieces here and there, maybe 1 or 2 per drop, but the bulk of the collections should be essentials. And I knew those things this time around. And because I knew those things this time around, I was intentional about picking inventory for that audience, for that time. Again, it was 2020. Everybody was in the house. You know why? I mean, you know what that means? Everybody had on athleisure. Everybody was wearing loungewear. We all wanted a 2-piece set or a sundress. And I knew that. So I had that in mind when I ordered my inventory, right? Okay, so this was in August of 2020, and it was amazing. I have no complaints about the relaunch. I think that it was a success. I think that I did a better job of marketing it. I knew who I was talking to, and I knew what I wanted to market to them. So I was much more intentional about it. And from that point on, business just continued to grow from 2020 to, I would say, about 2023. I was just on this consistent growth where it was just getting better and better, and I was able to order more, and I was able to have products that would like sell out really quickly. And that showed me that I was giving them what they wanted, but also that I was reaching my people. I was reaching my target audience, right? So then in 2023, I hit this point where I was like, I feel like I'm ordering more out of request than out of the mission and vision of this business. And it didn't sit right with me. It did not. I was very uncomfortable, because I was like, God, like, you told me that we were doing essentials. You told me that we were doing this. Like, I really want to be intentional about this. But I didn't feel any pause until about 2024. So I continued to kind of order, instead of doing like maybe 1 or 2 statement pieces and the rest staple. I started to do like half and half. So you can kind of see like my inventory diversify. And in some ways, it was good because I was reaching every girl, right? I had essentials for every woman. But in other ways, I felt like it was stretching me, because now if I order something and only 2 people buy it, I have 12 left or something like that, right? And I began to kind of see on the back end, I guess, and foresee the issues that were coming ahead. So we jumped to 2024, and things just changed in the economy. 4 years out of the pandemic, people are holding on to their money a little bit tighter. They're not as quick to buy. well, I don't want to say that, but like, they were not as quick to buy clothes. I'll say that instead of using the word essentials. And it just got hard. And I found myself on this rat wheel, just doing the same things over and over and over again, trying to make it work, hustling harder when I felt like I saw the lack, working in my own strength and kind of stepping out of that grace that God had given me to do it. He had given me this grace, this energy, this passion that I didn't have before for the business. And I was able to put everything into it. And I had all these great ideas and all these things that I wanted to do and different ways that I would market the product. But I just felt like, hold on, this is different. This is more of me than God, and it shouldn't be that way. I should be operating in His strength. I should be operating in His grace, in His will. If I'm working extra hard, that means that I may not be where He is. And I began to seek Him and say like, okay, God, what did I do? Where did I go wrong? How did we get here? And number one, my emotions got in the driver's seat at some point. So instead of being confident in what God was showing me and God was doing through me, through the business, I began to lean on my emotions and lean on the applause and the praise of people. When I would order something and it would do really, really well, I'm like, I gotta order more of that because it felt good to see that go out quickly and for the money to come back quickly. And when my emotions got in the driver's seat, God got out the car, essentially. He was like, yeah, I'm not doing that with you because if you want to be led by your emotions, you're going to be led astray. And that was something that I knew, that was something that I feared, but in the moment it happened. In the moment I folded. Like, if we're being real, y'all know I'm going to be honest with y'all. When things got tough and the demand was there, I was ordering what people wanted more than I was ordering what was original to the mission and vision of the business. And because that may have done well for a while, I thought that I was good and that God was okay with it. But what I didn't understand and realize was that it was more of a roller coaster thing of like, I would experience these highs and then I would have these lows. So I'd have a great 2 weeks and then I'd have like a dry month of like, what is going on? And that's what God was trying to prevent. If I would have stayed true to the mission and vision of what He and I had talked about, it wouldn't have been so much of like those up and down emotional responses to the business, because I would have been operating in His wisdom and things would have been sustainable. And He wouldn't have taken me through the highs and the lows of lows. Like, He would have been more, I don't know how to explain it, but I just felt like when my emotions began to run the business, I was in a bad spot. Because I knew, I was like, okay, God, I don't feel like God is in this. And as much as I would try to press back in and I would say, okay, God, what is it that I'm not doing? What am I doing wrong? I couldn't figure out how to fix it. And then at some point in 2024, I was like, I am tired. Like, I'm tapped. I am out of motivation. I will say that now. I didn't know that that was what was happening then, but I had got to a point where I was no longer motivated. And I was no longer motivated because I wasn't getting the response that I wanted. See, again, I was running my business off of my emotions. I was being emotional and I was depending on motivation over discipline to run the business, and it didn't work. And I got to a point where my tank was on E. And I was like, I just need a hard reset. I need to go back to God. I need to figure out what is going on. And I spent some time and I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not spending any more money on this, because at this point, between 2023 and 2024, I began to fully fund the business myself again. There was a point where, of course, like, when you start a business, you invest in it. And then the business makes money to where it can afford to run itself. And you will see profit. And you will see the business operating on its own without your input. I had got to a point where I had to put my own money back into it because it was not working. That's the best way that I can explain it. Because I don't want to keep y'all here all day. If I told y'all everything, we'd be here for 2 hours. And I just was over it. I was like, I can't do this. So I just stopped and I did a hard reset. Honestly, for about 2 months, I didn't even think about it. And then the light went off. Just ignore that. For about 2 months, I didn't even think about the business. I was like, I need a break. I can't. And I found myself kind of running because I didn't really want to face it. And I was like, I don't think that God wants me to do this anymore. And I kind of lost faith in the business and what he wanted to do through the business because I was being ruled by my emotions. And so at that point, I said, okay, now I'm going to be intentional about seeking him because something has to change. Something like I don't want to quit, but I feel the need to quit. So I took that sabbatical and I really just pressed in. And over that time, I kind of began to rediscover the passion that God had given me for the business because it's not about the business. It's about the people that business connects me to, right? If you know, you've been here a long time, I also do empowerment events through my other business called Bosses Block, and I host the Cultivate Conference and the Bosses Breaking Bread Day Retreat. Both of those things would not be possible without Lex Luxe Essentials. Why? Because the systems that run those things, that run Bosses Block, were the systems that I learned from Lex Luxe Essentials. The people that I serve in those events are people that I've connected with through Lex Luxe Essentials, and so I understood and realized the importance of that business being a funnel and something that God wasn't just using to give me money, but that he was using to impact his people. And I said, okay, I can't give up on it then. Like, I can't let this go because if I did, then I wouldn't be able to serve your people the way that I am. Like, it would kind of cap the capabilities of those things, right? And I was like, and I enjoy it and I miss doing it. So I said, okay. I made the decision to intentionally try again, and I began to rebuild my faith more recently, probably because, like I said, that was in 2024. We're halfway through 2025. So I would say the end of 24, like December, from now until, well, then December to about May, I was like, okay, I'm going to intentionally rebuild my faith in this thing. And I began to pray about it. I began to fast. I began to focus on it and say, like, how do I get back to where we're supposed to go? How do I make this hard reset? Because I know it's needed. And I've healed my relationship with money, because that's one thing, but I've also gotten out of the habit of letting my emotions run my business. So you can say I healed my emotions around my businesses because I was a workaholic and it gave me something to do. And I'm wired that way. I am wired to work. Like, I am a worker bee at heart. But I was taking it too far, honestly. And I wasn't dependent on God. I wasn't leaning on him. I was doing everything on my own in my own strength. And that's not the way that it should be when you're doing business with God, right? And you're doing business for his people. So I said, okay, I need to really get serious about this because I don't want the same thing to happen the next time around. So I began to really think through those things and take note of why I was letting my business be run by my emotions, why I had this poverty mindset around a business and how it had to be hustle and it had to be product money and nothing. Like, I feel like the mission just got lost because I was so focused on producing that it was like, what are you actually producing for? Like, I just forgot the why. I forgot the reason. And now that I'm in a better place, I'm like, I'm so excited to do it again. And I'm so happy that God trusts me to do it again because now that I know what I know, I am in the position where, like, I'm more disciplined. I'm not going to say have. I am healing that workaholic situation that was going on. I'm no longer a workaholic, and I truly understand why God placed this business inside of me and what he wants to do in it. And so now that we've gotten the history of Lex Luxe Essentials out of the way, I want to talk to you about what I did in the wait, because this episode is about my faith and how through that story you can tell that there was a roller coaster of, like, having faith, losing faith, having faith, losing faith, and this faith fatigue that I felt when it came to Lex Luxe Essentials. During that time, that was the first thing that I had to address. I had to address the lack of faith that I had in God and how that was playing out in my life and in my business. Because if I had faith in him, then I wouldn't be so moved by the applause of woman in this case because of the boutique, right? So when I began to intentionally address that faith crisis and rebuild my faith and reestablish like what I believe about God and how I know that he is my provider, he is my father, he's my teacher, he is the CEO of every business that I will ever have, and how he's always had my back and he has always come through for me and he has always done things intentionally. When I began to be reminded of those things, my posture changed because number one, if God is on my side, then I can't lose, right? And in the past, I would have felt like I was losing because of the way that things were going. Number two, I am a daughter of God, which means that I can rest and enjoy rest in his presence, right? Like I do not have to work myself and my own strength to get anything done because I can lean on him in everything, right? Because in his strength, well, in our weakness, he is strong, right? So when I began to remind myself of those things and understand that he who began a good work in me will not complete it until the day of Christ, it was like, okay, you can't give up on something because it's not the end. Like he started this work, he's going to finish it in me. And there's a greater purpose behind this. This business is so much bigger than myself that it would be selfish to quit, honestly and truthfully. So I want to talk to you about like, how did I go about rebuilding my faith and what did I do while I waited? Because there was a season of waiting when I was in that sabbatical of like, okay, I'm not relaunching yet. I don't have a vision yet. I haven't heard from God on it. What am I supposed to be doing in the meantime? So while I waited, I rebuilt my faith. Like I said, I healed my emotions and my relationship with money when it came to the business and how I was a workaholic. I healed through all of those things. I enjoyed rest. I took time to intentionally incorporate rest into my life so that it is a non-negotiable and it's not a treat or a reward. But I also served. And I served other entrepreneurs and their visions, and I helped them through my other business, which is called Boss's Block, where I help other entrepreneurs walk and work in purpose. So I help them create systems, structure, and content that will help them build their business and as well as build their lives, because I don't want, the same way I don't want women to sacrifice comfort, convenience, or confidence, I also don't want entrepreneurs to sacrifice their personal life for their work life. So I began to really work with other entrepreneurs closer to me through those things and helping them establish discipline, cultivate consistency, and really create a community of us that can lean on each other, support each other, but also help each other, right? So I served, and it feels really good when you get to serve someone else's vision and mission and utilize the wisdom that God had given me through my experience with Lex Luxe and Boss's Block to other entrepreneurs that either were starting a business, pivoting in the midst of their business, or continuing to build and scale their business. So I created different programs where I would help people who either wanted that personal development or that professional development, people that wanted me to just consult with them regarding their strategy for their messaging and the content that they created. I have contracts with businesses where I create their content for their social media. I just helped. Like one of my best friends, y'all know Ree, she's a photographer. I went with her to events and I was able to help her. And just really pouring in and loving the people that were around me and using my gifts to help them cultivate their gifts. So that was like my favorite part of that wait, but it also lit something up in me because it was like, if I have faith for God to do this for you, and I know that he is no respecter of persons, then why am I doubting that he would do that for me, right? Like, if I'm telling you all of these things, why can't I practice those same things? Like, at some point, I realized that I had to practice what I was preaching. And though everyone's business is different, they have their own set of goals, visions, their own people to reach for God, the foundation of faith was the same. I'm telling them that they have to believe, and I didn't believe in my own business. And that is just like mind blowing. Like, what? That doesn't even make sense, right? But it really did rebuild my faith in this season. You could honestly say a year, because I started Boss's Block 2 years ago, but I intentionally pushed it last summer. So you can say from last summer until this summer, I have intentionally been serving and just helping people where I can. And I love it. I really do. I love it. I love creating this community of people where we get to support each other, lean on each other, hold each other accountable as well. But just to know that we're all walking this out. We're all having to trust God with our lives and our businesses, and helping them to learn from my mistakes. Because even though I didn't know what I was doing when I was letting my emotions run my business, or I didn't know what I was doing when I was answering people more than I was answering God, it was still a mistake, right? It still wasn't where God wanted me. And so now my mission is to ensure that other people don't have to walk out those mistakes and that they can learn from mine. Because if you are a entrepreneur that believes that God has blessed you with the business that he is giving you, there's a different level of weight to that. It's one thing to have a business for the world, serve the world, in the world. It's another thing to say I'm doing this for God and putting his name on things, right? It's weighty. And because you know that you want to impact his people, you want to build his kingdom, and you want to be a good steward over what he's entrusted to you, you want to take that seriously. So I think that having the community and being able to help other people not make the same mistakes that I did has made all the difference in rebuilding my faith in this season. Let me see. I'm gonna check my notes, because I know I'm about to finish up. So yeah, I've just been helping other bosses build better, and it has truly transformed my faith. And I think that's why it's important that we serve, because when you serve, you begin to see God differently. And it's different. It is different. Now, I want to talk about what's next for Lex Luxe, because this is the season finale of Let's Grow, but we're also inching up on my anniversary of Lex Luxe, which will be around the time that I relaunch again. Because again, this is supposed to be like, why I quit my boutique, what did I do while I quit, and now it's going to be different. So I'm gonna be honest, the structure of the business is still the same, the systems are still the same, but the mission and vision is more true to what I believe that God wants to do. So what can you expect from Lex Luxe going forward, right? You can expect more intentional collections. You can expect more staple pieces and essential sets. You can expect there to be a collection for every girl. So instead of trying to just order a little bit of everything, I'm not going to do that, but I will have different collections that may cater to different women that want different things. So there may be like the Greaux collection, where I'll say the Go collection, that's very on the go, very quick for my busy women that want to look good but also got things to do. But then I may have the Glow collection, which is like the soft girl era, where my girls want to look good and feel good as they go to church on Sunday or go to brunch with their friends or anything like that. Jeans are still going to be a staple. You know we love denim over here. And just more essentials for the girls, more intentional messaging around building our confidence, not just in ourselves, but in God as well. I think I'm going to bring back more of like those motivational and inspirational posts as well on the page, just so that we know and understand like where we are rooted in Lex Luxe. And I'm not gonna give it all away, but you can expect to see more intention behind that rhythm of like work and personal life. Because at first, like I told y'all, look, my name is Alexis and I am a recovering workaholic, because I was a workaholic, but we're not there anymore. That's not the season that I'm in. I desire for no woman to have to experience that season, and I want Lex Luxe to be intentional about promoting and providing for women that live in rhythm. I don't want us to live in hustle. I don't want us to live in laziness, but I want us to live in a good rhythm where we can cultivate the life that we desire and the life that God is calling us to, but that we can also enjoy his rest and truly enjoy life, right? So you can expect that. I'm trying to think of anything else before I let y'all go because we have 45 minutes. That's crazy. You can expect for me to relinquish control a lot more in life as well as in business because this is something I'm walking out. I don't think that I will ever. Well, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that because I've changed a lot in the last year, and I thank God for that. So I will continue to relinquish control and trust that God knows better than I do and that He has His best in store for this business, for me, for my life, for the women that I will impact through this business, and for all the other things that we do. So I hope that when you listen to this, that you begin to see how important it is to have faith as a foundation, but also how important it is to serve while you wait, and understanding that God's will is the best outcome that you can ever expect to have in your life. So the best thing that you can do is to lean in, trust Him, and seek His face regarding His will for your life. This is the season finale, so it's going to be a while before y'all see me again. I hope that you enjoyed this season. I hope that you enjoyed this episode, and I really would love to know how this has impacted you. If I said anything that spoke to you, I know I talked about like allowing my business to be ran by my emotions and poverty mindset and things like that earlier. I am going to release an ebook about healing and handling business so that your emotions are not running your business, because that was something really hard for me to grasp and understand and experience. But again, my goal is for no woman or no man or no entrepreneur to have to make the same mistakes that I did. So I will be releasing that ebook soon. You can check out my social media for that. But other than that, I hope that this message has really impacted you in a good way. And I want to know. So drop it in the comments, shoot me a message on Instagram or Facebook. Just let me know. I thank you for listening. I thank you for rocking with us this season. I think next season will be another amazing season. It will actually be around conference because we'll be going into conference season. So just stay tuned. You can keep up with me at bosses.block as well as at lex.lux_ on Instagram, or the Cultivate community on Facebook, bossesblock.com, lexluxeessentials.com, now that we are relaunching next month, and all the things. You can keep up with me. It'll all be in the bio, so don't worry if you missed it. But don't forget to grow, and we out.